Jake Sullivan floated in the zero-gravity lab of the U's Harmony. His hands moved across the control panel as numbers and waves danced on the screen in front of him. The deep space exploration ship had been traveling for 3 months now. Every day was the same routine of checking samples and scanning empty space. The ship moved slowly through the dark between stars. Captain Lisa Morgan wanted her crew to study everything they could find. Jake was the ship's xenobiologist. His job was to look for any signs of life in this part of the galaxy. So far, he had found nothing but rocks and ice. Jake pushed himself away from the wall and floated to another computer. The coffee in his cup formed the perfect sphere as it drifted next to him. He caught it with one hand and took a sip. The bitter taste helped him stay awake during the long night shift. The Kepler 442 system lay ahead of them. 3 planets orbited a yellow star, much like Earth's sun. The first planet was too hot, the third was too cold. But the middle planet looked promising. It had water and an atmosphere that could support life. Jake had been studying the radio signals from that direction for weeks. Most of what he picked up was just natural noise from the star. Solar flares and magnetic storms created static that filled his headphones. But tonight something was different. A new signal appeared on his screen. It was weak but steady. Jake turned up the volume and listened carefully. The sound was not random like the star's noise. It had a pattern. A rhythm. Jake called over to Nina Rodriguez at the communication station. She was working on updating the ship's message systems. Her dark hair was tied back as she focused on her work. Nina, can you take a look at this signal? I think I found something strange. Nina pushed off from her chair and floated over to Jake's station. She put on a pair of headphones and listened to the recording. Her eyes grew wide. Jake, this sounds like music. That's what I thought too. But that doesn't make sense. We're 40 light years from Earth. No human signal could reach this far. Nina played the recording again. The signal was faint but clear. It had the structure of a song with verses and a chorus. The melody was simple and beautiful. Both of them recognized it as an old Earth song from hundreds of years ago. We need to tell the captain, Nina said. Jake saved the recording and sent copies to the ship's main computer. Then he and Nina made their way through the narrow corridors to the bridge. Their magnetic boots clicked against the metal floor as they walked in the ship's artificial gravity. Captain Lisa Morgan was reviewing star charts when they arrived. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp green eyes. She had been exploring space for 20 years. Nothing surprised her anymore. Captain, we've picked up an unusual signal, Jake said. It appears to be music. Captain Morgan looked up. From her charts, music? Are you sure it's not just interference? Nina handed her the tablet with the recording. Listen for yourself, Captain. The captain put on headphones and played the file. Her expression changed from doubt to amazement. She listened to the entire recording twice before speaking. This is definitely music. And it's coming from the second planet in this system. How is that possible? Dr. Alex Carter, the ship's linguist, had been working at another station. He overheard the conversation and joined them. Alex was young and energetic. He loved solving puzzles and mysteries. May I hear the recording? Alex asked. The captain handed him the tablet. Alex listened carefully and made notes on his computer. His fingers moved quickly as he analyzed the signal. The mathematical structure is fascinating, Alex said. This isn't just random music. The frequencies are precise. Almost like a language. Jake felt his heart beat faster. After months of finding nothing, they might have discovered proof of alien life, and not just simple bacteria or plants. This was evidence of intelligence and culture. Captain, I recommend we change course for the second planet, Jake said. We need to investigate this signal. Captain Morgan considered the request. Changing course would delay their mission by several weeks. But this discovery could be the most important in human history. Set a new course for Zephyria Prime, the captain ordered, and send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we may have found our first alien civilization. The next few hours passed quickly. The entire crew worked to prepare for possible firsts. Contact. Jake studied everything they knew about the planet. It was slightly larger than Earth with 2 small moons. The atmosphere contained oxygen and nitrogen. Oceans covered most of the surface. Dr. Amy Foster, the ship's psychologist, began reviewing first contact protocols. She had trained for this moment, but never expected it to actually happen. Her job would be to help the crew deal with the stress of meeting alien beings. Nina worked on improving their communication systems. If the aliens used music as language, they would need new equipment to translate. She contacted the ship's engineer, Carlos Vega, to help modify their transmitters. Jake returned to his lab and played the alien signal over and over. Each time he heard something new, the melody was hauntingly beautiful. It reminded him of love. Songs from old Earth, the kind his grandmother used to play on her ancient music player. As the ship moved towards Zephyr Prime, Jake wondered what kind of beings had created this music. Were they like humans? Did they feel emotions the same way? Did they understand love and loss and hope? The signal grew stronger as they got closer. Soon Jake could hear multiple instruments playing together in harmony. The aliens had created something wonderful, something that touched his heart even though he didn't understand the words. Jake looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere ahead was a world full of music makers, beings who might become humanity's first friends among the stars. He couldn't help but feel excited about what they might discover. The harmony continued its journey toward the musical planet. Jake smiled as he listened to the alien song one more time. First contact was only days away. The U's harmony entered orbit around Zephyr Prime 3 days later. Jake pressed his face against the observation window and stared at the planet below. Swirling blue oceans mixed with green and brown continents. White clouds drifted across the surface like cotton balls. Captain Morgan stood on the bridge watching the main screen. The planet looked peaceful and beautiful, but they still didn't know what kind of beings lived there. The musical signals had grown stronger during their approach. Now they could hear dozens of different songs coming from the surface. Captain, I'm detecting multiple cities across the main continent, Nina reported from her station. The signals are coming from at least 12 different locations. Dr. Alex Carter had been working day and night to understand the alien music. His eyes were red from lack of sleep. Coffee cups floated around his workstation. He had filled 3 computers with data about the musical patterns. I think I'm starting to understand their language, Alex said. The music isn't just art, it's how they communicate. Different notes mean different things. The rhythm shows emotion. Jake floated over to Alex's station. The linguist had created charts showing how the alien songs connected to each other. Some were simple like greetings. Others were complex like poetry or stories. Have you figured out what that first song means? Jake asked. The one that sounds like the old Earth love song? Alex nodded and pulled up the translation on his screen. Near as I can tell, it's a distress call, but not for help with a disaster. They're asking for help with something called the silence. Captain Morgan joined them at the workstation. What kind of silence? I'm not completely sure, Alex admitted. But from what I can understand, their people are losing the ability to make music. And for them, that means they're losing the ability to talk to each other. Dr. Amy Foster had been listening from her nearby station. She pushed off from her chair and joined the group. Amy was responsible for understanding how first contact might affect both humans and aliens. If music is their primary form of communication, losing it would be like us losing our voices, Amy said. It could destroy their entire civilization. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. These aliens were facing extinction, and somehow they had discovered human music. Maybe they thought Earth songs could help them. Captain, we need to make contact, Jake said. They might be dying down there. Captain Morgan nodded slowly. First contact was always dangerous. But they couldn't ignore beings who were asking for help. She had joined the space service to explore and to help others when possible. Nina, prepare a communication array. We'll try to respond using their musical language. Alex, I need you to create a simple greeting. Nina and Carlos Vega worked together to modify the ship's transmitters. They needed equipment that could send complex musical signals instead of just radio waves. Carlos welded new parts, while Nina programmed the computers. Alex spent hours creating their first message. He used simple notes that meant hello and friend and help. The melody was basic but clear. He hoped the aliens would understand that humans wanted to communicate. Jake watched the planet during the preparations. Sometimes he could see lights moving across the surface. The aliens had cities and technology. They had built a civilization based on music and harmony. Now that civilization was in danger. Broadcasting now, Nina announced. The ship sent Alex's musical greeting toward the planet. Then everyone waited. Jake held his breath as seconds turned into minutes. Would the aliens respond? Did they even know the humans were there? Suddenly, every speaker on the ship filled with beautiful music. The alien response was complex and layered. Multiple voices sang together in perfect harmony. The sound was so lovely that several crew members began to cry. They're welcoming us, Alex said, his voice shaking with emotion. And they're inviting us to come down to the surface. Captain Morgan made the decision quickly. Prepare the shuttle. Jake, Alex, Amy, and Nina will make first contact. I want peaceful contact only. No weapons. The shuttle bay filled with activity as the crew prepared for the historic landing. Jake put on his environmental suit and checked his equipment. His hands shook with excitement and fear. In a few hours, he would meet the first alien beings humanity had ever encountered. The shuttle launched from the Harmony and descended through Zephyria Prime's atmosphere. Through the windows, Jake could see vast forests and sparkling rivers. Cities rose from the landscape like musical instruments made of crystal and metal. Landing coordinates received, Nina reported. They want us to land near their largest city. The shuttle touched down in a clearing surrounded by tall trees. The ground was covered with grass that sparkled in the sunlight. Flowers grew everywhere in patterns that looked like musical notes. Jake stepped out of the shuttle first. The air smelled sweet like honey and rain. A gentle breeze carried the sound of distant singing. The gravity was slightly lighter than Earth's, making each step feel like floating. Then he saw them. The Melodians were tall and graceful with pale, blue skin that seemed to glow softly. They had large eyes like dark pools and long fingers that moved like they were always playing invisible instruments. Their clothes were made of flowing material that changed color with the music around them. A group of Melodians approached the humans slowly. Their leader was older with silver markings on her face and arms. She began to sing in a voice like crystal bells. The sound was the most beautiful thing Jake had ever heard. Alex listened carefully and sang back using the greeting they had practiced. His human voice sounded rough compared to the Melodians' perfect tones. But the aliens seemed pleased that he was trying to communicate in their language. The elderly Melodian sang a longer song. Alex translated as she spoke through music. She says her name is Zixtara. She's something like a doctor and a leader combined. She's thanking us for coming and asking if we can really help with the silence. Jake looked around at the gathered Melodians. Many of them seemed sad or worried. Some moved their mouths like they were trying to sing, but no sound came out. The silence was real, and it was affecting more of them every day. Amy stepped forward and spoke to Alex. Ask her to explain what the silence does to them. Alex sang the question in musical notes. Zixtara's response was long and complex. When? She finished. Alex's face was pale. The silence isn't just losing their voices, Alex translated. Without music, they can't reproduce. They can't form relationships. They can't even think clearly. Their entire brain chemistry depends on musical communication. Jake understood now why the Melodians had been so excited to hear human music. They were facing extinction unless they could find a cure for the silence. And somehow, the simple love songs from Earth had given them hope. "Tell her we want to help," Jake said. "Tell her we'll do everything we can." As Alex sang the promise, Jake looked at the beautiful alien beings around them. These people had created a civilization based on harmony and beauty. He couldn't let them disappear from the universe. Somehow, humans and Melodians had to find a way to save them together. Jake spent the next 2 weeks learning about Melodian society. The humans had set up a temporary base near the Crystal City. Every day brought new discoveries about how the musical aliens lived and worked. The Melodians built their homes like giant musical instruments. Their houses resonated with sound and created beautiful harmonies when the wind blew through them. Streets were designed to carry music from one end of the city to the other. Even their technology worked through sound waves and musical frequencies. But Jake could see the damage the silence was causing. Many Melodians walked around like ghosts. They tried to sing, but only whispers came out. Others had stopped trying to communicate at all. They sat alone and stared at nothing. Zixtara showed Jake through a medical center where Melodian doctors tried to treat the silence. The affected aliens lay on beds that vibrated with healing frequencies. But nothing seemed to help for very long. The sickness started 5 years ago. Alex translated as Zixtara sang her explanation. At first, only a few Melodians lost their voices. Now hundreds are affected every month. Dr. Amy Foster studied the brain scans of sick Melodians. Their neural patterns were completely different from humans. Music wasn't just communication for them. It was how their minds processed information and emotions. Without musical input, their brains start shutting down, Amy explained to Jake. It's like they're slowly forgetting how to think. Jake felt helpless watching the suffering Melodians. You wanted to help, but didn't know how. Then one morning, everything changed. Nina was testing human music through Melodian speakers when she accidentally played an old Elvis song. The melody of "Can't Help Falling in Love" filled the medical center. Suddenly, several sick Melodians began to sing along. Their voices were weak but clear. For the first time in months, they could make music again. The effect only lasted a few minutes, but it proved that human songs could somehow heal the silence. Jake immediately called a meeting with Zixtara and the other Melodian leaders. Through Alex's translation, they explained what had happened. The elderly healer's eyes grew wide with hope. "She wants to know if we can play more human music," Alex said. "She thinks it might be the cure they've been looking for." But not all Melodians were happy about this discovery. Commander Velthorn led a group that believed relying on alien music was wrong. He was a military leader with dark blue skin and scars across his chest. His songs were harsh and angry. He says Melodians should solve their own problems, Alex translated after a tense meeting. He thinks using human music will make them weak and dependent. Velthorn's followers began causing trouble around the city. They disrupted human music sessions and threatened Melodians who worked with the Earth visitors. Some even attacked the human base with sonic weapons that created painful noise. Chief Security Officer Ryan Brooks had to organize defenses for the human team. Ryan was a big man with steady hands and quick reflexes. He had been a soldier before joining the space service. "I don't want to fight them," Ryan told Captain Morgan over the communication link. "But I won't let them hurt innocent people either." The situation grew worse when Velthorn's soldiers surrounded a housing complex where sick Melodians lived. They used their sonic weapons to create interference that blocked all musical healing. Inside the building, dozens of Melodians began collapsing as the silence returned stronger than before. Jake couldn't stand watching the suffering. He grabbed a portable speaker and ran toward the building. Ryan and 2 other security officers followed him. Velthorn's soldiers tried to stop them with sonic blasts, but Jake kept running. He reached the building's entrance and turned on the speaker. Human music poured out at full volume. Inside, the sick Melodians began to recover as the healing songs reached them. But Velthorn himself appeared in the doorway. The Melodian commander was huge compared to Jake. His skin glowed with anger as he sang a battle song that hurt Jake's ears. The alien's large hands reached for the human's throat. A young Melodian named Lyrael suddenly stepped between them. She was small and graceful, with silver markings that showed she was still learning to be a healer. Her voice was pure and sweet as she sang a calming song. Velthorin hesitated when he heard her music. Lyrael continued singing, mixing human and Melodian melodies together. Her song told the story of two different peoples learning to help each other. The commander's anger faded as he listened. Other Melodians gathered around to hear Lyrael's beautiful music. Even some of Velthorin's soldiers stopped fighting to listen, but the peaceful moment ended when an explosion rocked the building. Velthorin's extremist followers had planted sonic bombs in the foundation. The building began to collapse as harmonic frequencies tore through the crystal structure. Jake and Lyrael found themselves trapped in a falling section of the building. Chunks of singing crystal crashed around them as they tried to find an exit. The young Melodian was hurt and couldn't move quickly. Jake picked her up and carried her toward a window, but the floor gave way beneath his feet. They fell into a basement room as the ceiling collapsed above them. In the darkness, Jake could hear Lyrael crying. She was making small sounds of pain and fear. Without thinking, he began to hum the melody of Can't Help Falling in Love. The simple human song seemed to calm her. As Jake hummed, something amazing happened. Lyrael's injuries began to heal. The cuts on her arms closed up. The fear in her eyes faded away. She started humming along with him, adding Melodian harmonies to the human melody. Their combined voices created something new. The sound was more beautiful than either species could make alone. The crystal walls around them began to glow and resonate with their song. Above them, the fighting stopped. Velthorin and his soldiers heard the incredible music coming from the collapsed building. Even they had never heard anything so beautiful. Ryan and his team dug through the rubble following the sound. When they found Jake and Lyrael, both were glowing with soft light. The young Melodian was completely healed. Jake felt stronger and more alive than ever before. Dr. Amy Foster studied them both when they returned to the base. Something had changed in their brain chemistry. The human and Melodian minds had somehow connected through the shared music. I think we've discovered something important, Amy told the team. Human emotions expressed through music don't just heal the silence. They can create a new kind of connection between our species. But Velthorin wasn't finished. The failed attack had only made him more determined to drive the humans away. He began gathering support from other Melodian cities. Soon Jake and his team would face an enemy with weapons designed to destroy all music forever. The young healer Lyrael stayed close to Jake after the incident. She taught him Melodian songs while he shared human music with her. Neither fully understood what was happening between them, but both felt the growing connection. The real battle for the future of both species was just beginning. Engineer Carlos Vega worked day and night in his makeshift laboratory. The basement of the Crystal Building had become his workshop after Jake and Lyrael's rescue. Carlos was trying to understand what had happened when the human and Melodian had sung together. Look at these readings, Carlos said to Dr. Amy Foster. His tablet showed energy patterns unlike anything they had seen before. When Jake hummed that song, both his brain and Lyrael's brain started working in sync. Amy studied the data with growing excitement. The brain scan showed something impossible. Human and Melodian minds were completely different. But during their shared song, both minds had created identical wave patterns. It's like they became one person for a few minutes, Amy said. The emotional content in human music is somehow bridging the gap between our species. Lyrael had been helping them understand Melodian science. She worked with Corthus, an elderly Melodian scientist who specialized in brain research. Together they discovered that human songs didn't just heal the silence temporarily. They could repair damaged neural pathways permanently. The quantum frequencies in human emotional expression match our healing frequencies, Lyrail sang to Alex for translation. But your music carries something ours doesn't. Something that makes the healing last. Jake spent hours with Lyrail trying to understand. This connection. When they sang together, he could feel her emotions and thoughts. She could sense his memories and feelings. It was beautiful but also frightening. I can feel your sadness about leaving Earth, Lyrail told him through Alex's translation. And your excitement about discovering new worlds. Jake was amazed at. She could understand his feelings so clearly. I can feel your fear about the silence destroying your people, and your hope that we can save them. But their research was interrupted by troubling news. Nina picked up radio communications from other Melodian cities. Commander Velthorin had been traveling across the planet gathering support for his cause. He's convinced 3 major cities to join him, Nina reported to Captain Morgan. They're calling themselves the Pure Song Alliance. They want all humans removed from Zephyr Prime. Worse yet, Velthorin's scientists had been developing new weapons. They called them silence makers. The devices could create destructive sound, waves that would block all music within a large area. Dr. Amy Foster studied the weapon designs that loyal Melodians had shared with them. These devices don't just stop music, she explained. They could damage the brain chemistry of any Melodian, caught in the effect. And they might hurt humans too. Captain Morgan made a difficult decision. She ordered half the human team to return to the ship for safety, but Jake refused to leave. The breakthrough is here, Jake argued. If we leave now, we might never understand how to permanently cure the silence. Lyrail also refused to retreat to safer cities. My people need this research, she sang. I cannot abandon them now. Carlos and Cortes worked frantically to develop a defense against the silence makers. They discovered that the weapons used specific frequencies to disrupt neural connections. If they could create a counter-frequency, they might be able to block the attack. We need perfect harmony between human and Melodian voices, Carlos explained. The emotional resonance from humans, combined with Melodian technical precision, could create a protective barrier. But they would need many voices. Working together, Jake and Lyrail began training other humans and Melodians to sing in the special combined harmony. It was difficult work. Most humans couldn't match Melodian precision. Most Melodians couldn't express human emotions. Amy Foster discovered why the connection was so hard to achieve. Human music carries our evolutionary history, she explained. Millions of years of struggle and survival and love. Melodians have evolved differently. Their music is more pure but less emotional. During their training sessions, Jake and Lyrail grew closer. They could communicate without Alex translating. Their minds seemed to understand each other directly through music. What happens to us when this is over? Jake asked her one evening as they practiced in the Crystal Gardens. Lyrail sang a sad melody about 2 rivers flowing toward different oceans. Jake understood her meaning. They came from different worlds with different destinies. Their connection might not survive the crisis, but their growing bond gave them strength. When they sang together, other humans and Melodians found it easier to join the harmony. The emotional bridge between the species grew stronger each day. Then the attacks began. Velthorin's forces surrounded the Crystal City with silence makers. The weapons created a dome of destructive sound that blocked all musical communication. Inside the dome, Melodians began collapsing as the silence returned stronger than ever. The protective barrier isn't working, Carlos reported, as alarms filled the human base. Their weapons are too powerful. Jake could see Melodians falling in the streets outside. Children who had been learning to sing again lost their voices. Elderly healers who had lived for centuries suddenly couldn't remember their own names. We have to do something, Jake said. They're dying out there. Ryan Brooks and his security team tried to fight their way out of the city. But Velthorin soldiers had superior numbers and weapons. The humans were trapped inside the silence. Dome with the suffering Melodians, Amy Foster made a desperate suggestion. What if Jake and Lyrail went to the center of the dome? Their connection is stronger than anyone else's. Maybe they could disrupt the weapons from the inside. It was incredibly dangerous. The center of the dome had the strongest silence field. Any Melodian who went there would lose their mind within minutes. Any human would suffer severe brain damage. We have to try, Jake said. We can't watch an entire civilization die. Lyrail agreed through song, even though her voice was already weakening from the silence field. Together they made their way through the empty streets toward the center of the city. The silence grew stronger with each step. Jake felt his thoughts becoming confused and scattered. Lyrail stumbled as her musical abilities faded. But they held hands and hummed, "Can't Help Falling in Love." As they walked out, the simple human love song seemed to protect them from the worst effects. Their connection grew stronger as the silence tried to tear them apart at the city center. They found 3 massive silence makers creating the destructive dome. Velthorin himself stood guard with a squad of soldiers. His song of challenge rang out across the silent plaza. "You have brought weakness to our world." Alex translated from the distance through radio. "Now you will watch it die." Jake and Lyrail looked at each other. They were just 2 people against an army. But they had something Velthorin didn't understand. They had love that crossed the boundaries between species. They began to sing together, combining human emotion with melodian harmony. Their voices rose above the destructive noise of the silence makers. The real battle for the future of both worlds was about to begin. Jake and Lyrail stood in the center of the plaza as the silence makers roared around them. The destructive sound waves made the air itself vibrate with pain. Jake's head felt like it was splitting apart. Lyrail could barely stand as her musical abilities faded. Commander Velthorin watched them from across the plaza. His soldiers surrounded the massive weapons that created the Dome of Silence. The Melodian commander sang a victory song that cut through the air like a blade. "Your connection means nothing," Alex's voice crackled through Jake's radio, translating Velthorin's words. "Watch as the weakness you brought to our world destroys us all." But Jake noticed something strange. Some of Velthorin's own soldiers were struggling against the silence field. The Melodians who operated the weapons wore special protective gear, but others were starting to collapse. "The silence makers are hurting his own people too," Jake whispered to Lyrail. Lyrail's voice was weak but determined. "He cares more about being pure than saving lives." Jake took her hand and began humming, "Can't Help Falling in Love." The melody was barely audible over the noise of the weapons. But something miraculous happened. Other voices joined them. Hidden throughout the plaza, loyal Melodians began singing along. They had been waiting for a signal to fight back. Their voices were faint and broken, but they sang with all their remaining strength. Dr. Amy Foster's voice came through the radio from the human base. "Jake, the harmony is creating small holes in the silence field. Keep singing." More voices joined the song. Human crew members from the base added their voices through radio transmitters. Melodians from other parts of the city sang from their hiding places. The combined melody grew stronger despite the destructive interference. Velthorin realized what was happening. He ordered his soldiers to increase the power of the silence makers. The weapons screamed louder, trying to drown out the growing song of resistance. "The weapons are overloading," Carlos reported through the radio. "They weren't designed to run at maximum power for so long." Jake could feel the change. The silence field was becoming unstable, but the strain was enormous. Several Melodians collapsed as they tried to maintain their part of the song. Human voices grew hoarse from shouting over the noise. Lyrail squeezed Jake's hand tighter. "We need to get closer to the central weapon," she whispered. "If we can disrupt it directly, the others will fail too." They began walking toward the largest silence maker. Each step was agony as the destructive field grew stronger. Jake felt his thoughts scattering like leaves in a storm. Lyrail's glow faded until she looked like a ghost. Velthorin and their soldiers tried to stop them. The Melodian warriors sang battle songs and raised sonic weapons. But other Melodians attacked the soldiers. From behind, a civil war erupted in the plaza as the city fought for its survival. Ryan Brooks and his security team broke through the silence field at the plaza's edge. They had wrapped their heads in specially designed sound dampeners that Carlos had created. The human soldiers fought their way toward Jake and Lyrail. "We're coming!" Ryan shouted over the chaos. "Hold on!" But they were too far away. Jake and Lyrail reached the central silence maker alone. The weapon was huge, made of dark crystal that absorbed all light and sound. Velthorin himself stood guard beside it. The Melodian commander was no longer singing. The silence field had grown so strong that even he couldn't make music anymore. His face showed confusion and fear as his own mind began to fragment. Jake realized the truth. Velthorin hadn't understood what his weapons would do. He thought they would only affect humans and weak Melodians. But the silence destroyed all musical minds equally. "Help us turn it off," Jake called to Velthorin. "It's killing your people too." The commander stared at Jake with empty eyes. The silence had taken his ability to think clearly. He reached for controls on the weapon, but his hands shook with confusion. Lyrail stepped forward despite her weakness. She began to sing directly to Velthorin. Her voice was barely a whisper, but it carried all the love and compassion she felt. For her people. For a moment, Velthorin's eyes cleared. He remembered who he was and what he had been trying to protect. Tears ran down his blue face as he realized what his hatred had created. Together, Jake, Lyrail, and Velthorin reached for the weapon's controls. But the machine sparked with dangerous energy. Touching it would kill anyone without protection. "I'll do it," Velthorin sang weakly. "This is my responsibility." Before anyone could stop him, the Melodian commander grabbed the central control crystal with both hands. Electricity coursed through his body as he forced the weapon to shut down. He screamed in pain, but held on until the silence maker went. Dark. The other weapons around the plaza began failing as their central controller died. One by one, the silence makers overloaded and exploded. The dome of destructive sound collapsed. Music returned to the city like sunrise after a long night. Melodians throughout the plaza began singing with joy and relief. Their voices were weak, but beautiful. The silence was finally broken. Velthorin collapsed beside the destroyed weapon. His body was badly burned from the electricity, but his eyes were clear for the first time in months. "I was wrong," he sang softly to Lyrail and Jake. "I let fear make me destroy what I wanted to protect." Dr. Amy Foster and the medical team rushed to help the injured commander. They worked alongside Melodian healers to save his life. Human technology and Melodian healing songs combined to repair the damage. As the battle ended, Jake and Lyrail found themselves surrounded by celebrating Melodians and humans. But both felt exhausted from their ordeal. The connection between them had grown so strong that they shared each other's pain and fatigue. "What happens now?" Jake asked as they sat together in the Crystal Gardens. Lyrail sang a complex melody about two different seeds planted in the same soil. Through their connection, Jake understood her meaning. They had created something new together, something that belonged to both worlds, but also the neither. Dr. Amy Foster approached them with, "Test results. Your brain patterns have permanently changed," she explained. "The musical connection has created new neural pathways. You're not quite human anymore, Jake, and Lyrail isn't quite Melodian." Captain Morgan's voice came through the communicator. "We've received messages from Melodian cities across the planet. They want to learn more about the human-Melodian connection. They're asking if we'll help them set up permanent cultural exchange programs." Jake looked at Lyrail. Both knew their lives had changed forever. They could never return to what they had been before. But perhaps they could become something better. "Tell them yes," Jake said. "Tell them we'll help them learn to sing together." The plaza filled with music as humans and Melodians celebrated their victory. But Jake and Lyrail knew the real work was just beginning. They had to find a way to heal the silence permanently and build a future where both species could thrive. Together, the final battle had been won. But the greater challenge of unity still lay ahead. 6 months later, Jake stood on the observation deck of the new Unity station orbiting Zephyr Prime. Through the massive windows, he could see the planet's surface covered with lights that pulsed in rhythm like a giant heartbeat. The lights were music made visible, showing the songs that flow between human and Melodian communities. Lyrael floated beside him in the station's zero-gravity section. Her appearance had changed since their first meeting. Her blue skin now had golden highlights that appeared when she was happy. Jake's eyes had developed small flecks of blue that seemed to glow when he sang. "The morning chorus is starting," Lyrael said, speaking in perfect English. The connection between them had grown so strong that she could learn human languages. Directly from his mind, through the station's speakers, they heard the daily song that rose from the planet below. Thousands of voices joined together in a melody that combined human emotions with Melodian precision. It was more beautiful than anything either species had created alone. Dr. Amy Foster joined them at the observation window. Her research over the past months had revolutionized understanding of both human and Melodian consciousness. She carried a tablet full of data about the ongoing changes in both species. "The transformation is accelerating," Amy reported. "We now have over 200 human Melodian pairs showing permanent neural bonding, and the effect is spreading to others around them. The bonding process had become voluntary after the crisis. Humans and Melodians who chose to connect through music found their minds, slowly merging while keeping their individual personalities. They could share thoughts, emotions, and abilities across the species barrier." Captain Morgan approached their group with news from Earth. "The Global Space Council has approved the Harmony Project," she announced. "We're authorized to establish permanent colonies here and begin cultural exchange with other star systems." Jake felt Lyrael's excitement through their connection. The Melodians had already identified 12 other planets with musical civilizations. Some were dying from their own versions of the silence. Others had different problems that human-Melodian cooperation might solve. "Commander Velthorn wants to lead the first exploration mission," Captain Morgan continued. "His recovery has been remarkable. The former enemy had become one of the strongest supporters of human-Melodian unity. The electrical burns from destroying the Silence Maker had healed, but they left him with the ability to hear human emotions in music. The experience had completely changed his perspective." Velthorn arrived at the observation deck as if summoned by their conversation. His appearance had also changed. The scars on his face now glowed softly when he sang. His voice had gained new depth that could express both Melodian precision and human passion. "The harmonics of Kepler 438 have stopped responding to our communications," Velthorn reported. "Their musical transmissions ended 3 days ago. We fear they may be facing their own version of the silence." Jake and Lyrael exchanged glances. Through their bond, both felt the same urgent desire to help. They had learned that their combined abilities could heal musical civilizations that no single species could save. "How long would it take to reach their system?" Jake asked. 4 months with the new Harmony drives," Carlos Vega answered as he joined the group. The engineer had developed propulsion systems that use human Melodian musical resonance to bend space-time. Ships powered by combined songs could travel faster than any previous technology. Dr. Amy Foster pulled up star charts on her tablet. "We're detecting similar problems in 6 other systems. Musical civilizations going silent across this entire region of the galaxy." Lyrael sang a complex melody that Jake translated for the others. "She says there might be a connection. Something is spreading between musical worlds and destroying their ability to create harmony." The implications were terrifying. If the silence could spread between star systems, it threatened every musical civilization in the galaxy. The human Melodian partnership might be the only thing that could stop a galactic disaster. "We need to investigate," Captain Morgan decided. "Jake, Lyrael, I want you to lead a joint expedition. Take Velthorn and a mixed crew of humans and Melodians. Over the following weeks, they prepared for the longest journey either species had ever attempted. The new ship UE, as Harmony's voice was designed specifically for human Melodian crews. Every system responded to musical commands. The halls resonated with songs that kept both species healthy during long space flights. Jake and Lyrael spent their final days on Zephyria Prime, visiting the communities they had helped save. In crystal cities and human settlements, children of both species played together and learned each other's songs. The sight filled them with hope for the future. Elder Zixtar blessed their mission with an ancient Melodian ceremony. Her voice had grown stronger since the cure for the silence was discovered. She sang a prophecy about two hearts beating as one across the stars. You carry the hopes of both our worlds, she told them through song. But more than that, you carry the promise of what all beings might become when they choose love over fear. The Harmony's voice launched on a clear morning, when both of Zephyria Prime's moons were visible in the sky. As the ship moved away from the planet, Jake and Lyrael stood in the observation lounge watching their home grow smaller. Are you scared? Jake asked through their mental connection. With you, I am never afraid, Lyrael replied in the same way. We face the unknown together. The crew of 50 humans and 50 Melodians began their daily Harmony session as the ship entered hyperspace. Their combined voices created a protective bubble of music around the vessel. Within that bubble, both species could thrive in the empty darkness between stars. Jake thought about the journey that had brought them here. It had started with a simple signal, a love song floating through space. Now it had become something much larger. Humans and Melodians were no longer separate species. They were becoming something new together. Through the ship's speakers, the crew sang Can't Help Falling in Love in both human and Melodian styles. The melody that had first connected their worlds now carried them toward new adventures and new civilizations to save. As the stars streamed past the observation windows, Jake and Lyrael held hands and hummed together. Their song joined the greater harmony that now connected worlds across the galaxy. Love had indeed proven to be the universal language. Behind them, Zephyria Prime continued to glow with musical light. The planet had become a beacon of hope for any species struggling with silence and separation. And ahead of them lay a galaxy full of worlds, waiting to learn that harmony was stronger than any force that tried to divide them. The story of human and Melodian unity was just beginning. Together, they would sing new songs among the stars and prove that love truly could conquer any darkness the universe might hold. Their voices echoed through space, carrying a message of hope to anyone who could hear. No one had to face the silence alone.